Welcome back to Photography Week. I'm Courtney with Click It Up a Notch, and if you haven't already, check out our previous videos. If you haven't had a chance to check out the photography bundle, please give that a look today. Time is running out. It's a very limited time offer because they were able to get all these photographers to contribute a product, and at this price it can only be available for a short amount of time. So if it's something that you might be interested in, check it out, click the link, at least check it out before it's over, because I'd hate for you to miss it or realize after the fact that it's something that would have helped you grow as a photographer. Today I want to talk about how to create really interesting photos. We've already talked about getting your settings right and really focusing on that versus like trying to create these amazing, interesting photos if you're not comfortable in manual mode. But once you're comfortable, then really what you want to do is think of ways that you can create really fun and interesting images. I remember when I was starting out, I was reading a book by Scott Kelby, who has some products in the photography bundle, which is really amazing. And he was talking about how, as a photographer, if you go on a trip and you take 100 photos, 50 of them are probably good, 25 of them are great, only about 10 of them are amazing, and those are the ones that you should be sharing. Taking photos to share, you want to be sharing your best work, the stuff that inspires you, that makes you feel something. And so there's different ways that those kind of images are created, through your subject, through light, through composition. And so in this video I want to focus on composition and different types of composition that you can use to create these really interesting photos. We used to live in England for a couple years, and we were able to travel all over Europe and England, and I found that when traveling, I love travel photography, but it's really challenging to find interesting ways to photograph the same thing that has already been photographed so many times that it's typically a postcard and it's in books at this point. So how can you create these really interesting photos? I have a few tricks that I use, and one of them is I always like to look for leading lines. And leading lines are basically a line in the environment, so it can be structural or environmental. Think of things like sidewalks or streets, trees, stair rails. There's all kinds of things. You just have to look for them. What you're going to do is you're going to set your subject up towards the end of the line, and you will compose the image so that the line is leading your viewer through the photo to your subject. This can be really powerful and really create a statement image. Another thing you can try is using negative space. And this one is really fun because what you create is an image where you have a subject and then everything around it is empty. And so really, as the viewer scans the image, there's nothing for their eye to fall on but your subject. So it's a very strong image to pull your viewer into your subject. Another one that I really like, and it's one of my favorite ones when I travel, is framing. So what that means is you will place your subject inside some sort of natural element, whether it's, again, structural or environmental, that creates a frame within your image. So you have your subject, a frame within the image, and then the image itself. This is really fun. When we were traveling around England a few years ago, we were walking around London, and I wanted to come up with creative ways to capture these things, like I had mentioned. And when we were looking at Big Ben, this is before they had all of the scaffolding on it to repair it, you can see it, and it's been photographed so many times. You can buy a postcard, like I said, but I wanted to come up with a creative way to photograph it. And so as we were walking around, I was turning around and looking at it, or walking around a different sides, trying to figure out something. And when we walked around Parliament, I noticed that if we looked through the gates of Parliament, you could see Big Ben. And if I stepped back just a little, I could include the gates as my frame, and then I could put Big Ben in the middle of them. And so it just made for a more interesting image. I'm not saying I'm the first person who ever thought of it. I'm sure it's been photographed before. But it's that idea of pushing yourself and trying to see something that everyone sees in a different way, that not only you, but you can tell the story in a different way. Another example is when we were at Pearl Harbor and we were walking around the memorial. When I looked up, I saw the American flag waving, which is very touching as a military family at a place like Pearl Harbor. So I wanted to photograph that. But again, trying to think of how can I capture this in an interesting way. And so when you look up, you can see that the way the monument is made, that there's an opening and there's basically a framing that I could frame the flag that way. And what's really neat is I've shared that image before, and I've had people who have been to Pearl Harbor just recognize what it is from this photo, which is really cool. So by using elements that are already in your frame, like structurally or environmental, you're able to create these really interesting photos. So I challenge you, even if you're not traveling around Europe, there are different ways that you can capture your everyday life with these different compositional guides and elements that can help you take your image to the next level. As I mentioned earlier, there's still time to grab the photography bundle. There's several courses in there that talk about composition and how to make your images more interesting. And I really hope that you'll take the time to check it out. Go ahead and grab it while you can and start diving deep and learning more about photography.